The Gauteng provincial government says that province has incurred over 3 billion rands worth of damage during the violence, which saw dozens of malls and shopping centres being looted. The Premier David Makhura says this is just a preliminary estimate, which doesn't include the township economy. Makhura was outlining plans to revive the economy in Gauteng.
A few weeks when we were going through the lockdown level 3 has also had an impact on our economy. And the unrests come at the back of us still grappling and dealing with the impact of COVID-19 on the entire economy, the supply chains and value chain in Gauteng, but also on the small businesses in our province. So the unrest have had a very terrible impact on the Gauteng economy. So far, the preliminary estimation is that the cost in rand terms, the damage caused by the unrest is, this is the preliminary estimation, 3.5 billion rands. A lot of this is in stock that would have been looted, and the destruction that has happened. This preliminary 3.5 billion rands in damages doesn't include a lot of the uninsured township-based businesses.
Well, let's get more on that now. Parks Towers, the MEC for Economic Development, Agriculture, Environment and Rural Development in Gauteng. He joins us now. MEC, good afternoon to you. We've all seen the economic damage done in Gauteng. You can literally see it walking through the streets of the province. We also know, of course, around the impact of COVID-19. What plans do you have to try and help resuscitate, try and help grow the Gauteng economy?
Thank you very much, Stephen, and good afternoon. Certainly, there's been a significant impact on the local economy, particularly the retail sector and logistics sectors that are supplying township-based enterprises, including the shopping malls. We've done an estimation that working on the insured businesses, no less than 3.5 billion of looting and damages has been done in the province of Gauteng, and this excludes uninsured businesses and other enterprises that might not have been calculated, that we're currently calculating and verifying impact on those. And this, of course, excludes the informal sector. So we've worked on a comprehensive program that complements the national initiatives as announced by the respective ministers to ensure that we're able to address the challenges on local enterprises. Starting point is, you would know that many of the shopping malls would have in and around them informal sector participants, and we've created a facility where these would be supported, not just in the malls, but those also outside the malls. And we've created a facility where they can access up to 50,000 of stock financing and stock credit, depending on the nature of impact that they have suffered. We've also created a facility for those enterprises that are uninsured or underinsured. And we have many of those enterprises in the townships, both inside the malls, but also outside the malls, corner shops and so on. We have worked with partners to create a facility, in particular IDC and other private sector partners, where we have a blended financing facility where these can raise up to 1 million rand to support their respective enterprises. And it's blended because it's both loan and grant. The structure is up to 50% grants would be given to qualifying enterprises. And as I said, these are the ones that would not have been covered by insurance companies and SASRIA and so on. We've also created mechanisms to support enterprises on the logistics side. You would appreciate that a lot of what has impacted on KZN in terms of supply of goods and services to the province of Gauteng and out of Gauteng into neighboring provinces and countries has been impacted on by the extensive vandalism and damage that's been done in KZN. So it's about creating logistics facilities and support mechanisms for those involved in logistics, in the storing and movement of goods, to be able to co-locate in KZN and Gauteng, some of them to temporarily locate in Gauteng, so that we're able to ensure that there's movement of goods and services. We have particular concerns around pharmaceutical fast-moving consumer goods and those related goods that are crucial to not just the economy but also to livelihood.
NBC, there's been some discussion this week, I don't know if you would have seen a piece by Professor Mark Swilling, talking about the mallification of the township economy. The idea, as I understand it, the theory, is that the production and the number of large shopping malls has actually seen money leaving township areas rather than helping to grow township areas. Now, this is very contentious. I don't think people want shopping centres to go from where they are now. I think many people go to shopping centres, but not everybody. Do you have a view on that? Have we allowed too many shopping centres in township areas that maybe aren't the best economic choice? And yet, I fully understand that people go to shopping centres and want to go to shopping centres. We shouldn't stop them.
Well, there are issues around the way in which our urbanism has been impacted by what Professor Swilling calls modification of South African retail experiences, so to say. And that, in fact, there is great value in creating an urban system that is not enclosed. And you would know I've raised a number of these issues in the past around the way in which we're designing our urban system to become more inclusive, but also be community orientated, with creating high streets and other facilities that are more inclusive and community-based, as opposed to locking people into malls and so on. That notwithstanding, we have an extensive deployment of malls throughout the country. In Gauteng, we estimate that we have about 500 malls in different parts of the province, but also at different levels of the development of those malls. The question I think we need to ask ourselves is, having experienced this, having experienced the reality that our people do not necessarily own the facilities and believe that they do not have a direct interface except to retail at these facilities, how do we create better accessibility for township-based enterprises in these malls? And we've reached out to the private sector. We've spoken to the Consumer Goods Council of South Africa, to the Public Growth Initiative, Public-Private Growth Initiative. We've spoken to the Agricultural Development Agency, and yesterday we spoke to the South African Property Owners Association. And we said, why don't we have a conversation which is about how do we ensure access to the shelves for locally based, community-based enterprises, where local entrepreneurs can have access to both the shop floor but also to the shelves, and also receive the appropriate level of enterprise and supplier development. How do we ensure that local logistics service providers are able to facilitate? In many instances, these are involved at an informal level of providing logistics services. How do we integrate them into logistics? How do we ensure that retailers in the townships have access to the malls, but also other facilities? Interestingly, with some of the members of SAPOA, we're in discussions about creating a retail fund, which retail fund will try and address exactly those issues with regards to retailing facilities that include local participants. And this could include rental subsidy schemes, so that we're able to support township-based retailers, and therefore a broad base of participation in the retail facilities that have been created in these townships.
You're introducing a township economic development bill, the Gauteng Township Economic Development Bill. Obviously, you want to grow the economy in those areas. You want, in a perfect world, people would be able to live near where they work, whether the work moves to where they live now or whether they move to where the work is. We know that some people spend 40% of their income just on getting to work. So if they can walk to work or work where they live or live where they work, that really changes their lives fundamentally. Do you believe that the bill is actually going to have a major impact on basically achieving this, on making people's lives better?
The bill will certainly go a long way in ensuring, that we are able to facilitate access to industrial and commercial developments in the townships. Our observation, and as we're discussing now, the reality is that it's retail enterprises that have gone into the townships, but we don't have adequate commercial and industrial activity taking place for reasons of our own history as a country. So the bill is designed such that it enables those enterprises and land uses to be introduced into the townships at a scale that is enabling for the creation of inclusive economies that functions as a proper economy where our townships are not as they were historically designed to be dormitories for people who work and would have to travel into where the commercial centers are. As I said, the bill is but just one instrument. To support this bill, we've been engaging and we've agreed with the Industrial Development Corporation on the creation of a fund that would support township-based enterprises. We've also reached out to other private sector partners. So the fund that we're creating with the IDC, with our initial investment of 250 million, is intended to be a wholesale fund through which we deploy resources into intermediaries who are also bringing in their own money to provide certain financial support for specific industries in the townships. This would range from industrial and commercial. It would include stock credit. It would include the blended financing mechanisms I spoke about earlier. It would also include discussions that we're having with a whole range of other players around how we enhance the property sector in the townships and ensure that we're able to enhance the reality of property development in the townships, including by individual households that rent out their backyards. We're also talking to the taxi industry. We've reached out to those who are active in the taxi industry, both in terms of the supply of the fleet that constitutes the taxi industry, to say, how do we build industry around that? This would include the development of parts, post-sale maintenance and management, and a whole range of other facilities that we're creating together with industry so that we're able to build enterprises in the township. We believe that we should leverage on what is already there. If you have a taxi industry that's supplied with vehicles, how do we ensure that we build economies around it? If you have shopping centers that already exist, how do we ensure that local enterprises are able to leverage from those and that we're able to participate in enterprise and supply development initiatives with the private sector, supported by the public sector, to achieve this?
There are many issues that come out of all of this, and MEC, I don't need to tell you, you know this better than I do, the number of young people without jobs. It's almost as if we're creating a system designed to keep them out of jobs. I mean, if you look at the numbers, 56% of young people not in the economy before COVID-19. The figure, I think, is much higher now. This has been a long-term problem, growing actually since the 1970s, really, in South Africa. What it tells us is that we need some sort of urgent change. I would like to think that the bill that you're proposing, the other measures that you want to introduce, are going to help deal with that. But we will, I'm afraid, with the best will in the world, with the best efforts of government and everyone, there's still a lot more work to do to try and get young people into the economy. And it's not their fault. The world, it seems, really is against them.
There certainly is a lot more work that needs to be done, particularly with regards to young people, particularly with regards to women. And there are things about access to job opportunities that we need to address. You would know that in the province of Gauteng, we've been implementing the Triple 1 Million program, which is designed such that it creates access to opportunities for young people, matching them to where the jobs are, upskilling them to meet the market requirements in terms of the skills requirement, supporting them in terms of enterprise development, and supporting them in terms of skills opportunities. So it's a comprehensive program intended for young people, partnering with the private sector, because in reality, it is the market that needs these young people. It is the country that needs these young people to gain access to these opportunities. And we have to ensure that the skills that we create, but also the learnership programs and experiential learning opportunities that are created, are designed such that they meet the market's requirements. We can't continue with programs where government designs training solutions separate from what the market demands. It must be that we've matched both what the market needs and the resources that are being deployed through CETAs and other mechanisms that enable young people to gain access to the appropriate skills and to undergo continuous learning, so that through continuous learning they can adapt their skills to what the market demands. And it is a program that we're implementing, but I certainly am convinced that it requires significant upscaling, working with partners in the private sector.
MEC Parks Tau, MEC for Economic Development in Gauteng. I do appreciate the time. Thank you very much indeed. A lot more to talk about in terms of growing the economy in Gauteng, MEC.